Garfunkel, late in the evening, right here on Dan RadioStyle. That was even after the album live in Mile Square Park. What's the one in New York? Whatever that one is. Live at that park. It was pretty good stuff. Anyway, groupthink or how, if LOA exists, because this is kind of the question that inspired this. If LOA exists, then how can there be bad things in the world? How can there be places in starvation and places in Africa? A lot of people have asked this, by the way, about if there's a God or not. So I'm going to kind of answer it from both perspectives. So law of attraction, for sure. A lot of us think that law of attraction is some sort of, we've tapped into like a new religion, and it's not really a new religion. It's an aspect of what Source has created. Source has essentially created a game that we all get to partake in, right? This game's called life. And this life exists on this ball, this planet. And this planet we all run around on has the same physical laws, same everything, right? We have a number of things. But there are some spiritual laws that are also at work. There are aspects about this. There's rules to the game, if you will. So a lot of us kind of wonder, well, how can horrible things exist if there's, a God, or if there's law of attraction? So again, in the case of law of attraction, everyone knows there's the concept of contrast, right? You've got the opposite. The opposite is frequently meant to help us see what a better choice is. And we frequently talk about how what you think about, you give power to and create. So from a law of attraction standpoint, the reason there are horrible things in the world, not just the reason, but the us pushed out, I'll see if I get to that. From the standpoint of there being negative things in the world, people focus on negative things. And there's people that are maybe overlords that live in certain countries that have slaves, or I hear there's some slave trade still, which just blows my mind. Like, there's things that happen in the world that are horrible. I don't like, frankly, looking at that news because I don't like giving attention to it. But for those that do, okay, I'm not telling you how to live your lives. I'm saying what you spend time thinking about. Doesn't matter when or how. There's no time where you are allowed to punch out as far as law of attraction is concerned. You are 100% clocked in at all times. And what that means is, as Goddard says, you prune your thoughts. 100% of the time the garden hose is on. What are you pointing it at? I mean, you're not pointing it at yourself, right? Because that's a bad idea. You feel, dang it, I'm soaked now, right? Like, it's always on. There's no way to turn it off. You got to figure out what to do with it. You got to water plants? All right, I'm done. Do I want to hose off the driveway? All right, I know there's a drought. I can't seem to turn it off. So you have an abundance of water in this scenario. So what are you doing with it? So a lot of us also have to understand there's negative things in the world because negative things are allowed to happen. Now, from the higher level of just law of attraction, from the higher level, there is this thing called law of polarity, or law of opposites even. Right? And polarity means more so is the energy, the yin and yang, or yin and yang, or however you say it, right? Yin and yang, for what a lot of us Americans say, right? Yin and yang, that's the opposites. For every good, there's a little bad. For every bad, there's a little good, right? That whole concept exists. Duality, polarity exists within our reality. So Source created a playing field, and one of the rules is everything has an opposite. Everything has an opposite. If something exists as good, then there has to be an equivalent bad. There has to be almost an equidistant bad to talk about this good. It's how the rules are there. It's just how it happens. So for things to have to be good, then there has to be, and it doesn't have to exist in your life per se, but they do say oftentimes when you manifest things, you can sort of get a little more of the bad. Sometimes you've got to expand it further that way too, so you can get more distance going out. Again, it's the distance between the worst thing you've had and the best thing you've had is really your gauge. That's all you got. That's, oh my God, it's the greatest thing that's ever happened. Barely inches forward, but it was better than the greatest thing you've ever experienced, even though you just went through a green light and it was green because you said it was going to be green, which was cool, by the way, right? So from a higher standpoint, there is polarity. There are things that are allowed to occur on this planet that are considered evil. From a spiritual standpoint, even I've talked about some of this law of one stuff. I'm getting into crazy areas, but if I'm going to talk about this, I've got to talk about it from my understanding. And hopefully it works for you guys. I can't try to do it in your understanding. I got to do it in my understanding and see what you guys think. But from the standpoint of law of one, there are people that are there's service to self and service to others. Most of us are service to others oriented. Most of us are be cool to people oriented. Some of us are service to self. There are two different ways to approach life. There are two different ways to live life. Some from a Star Wars standpoint, you might call it light side, dark side, dark side. It's kind of similar to what it is. And the ones that are doing service to self understand that dark side part of it, and they're like, yeah, pretty much. Right? And that's what it is. And I'm not making judgment. The two exist because they have to. That's what this world is built around. There's supposedly other dimensions where only love exists. I don't quite know what that means, right? But from the standpoint of where we're at, I have a hard time denying that there's hot and cold, left and right, up and down. There's good and bad. There's like everything pretty much. There's ways, I think, to just be like, it is what it is. Like it's, you got in it and it made you cold. That's a good, bad, hot, cold, but there are things in life that just are what they are, right? Well, it happened, right? It happened. Judging it's pointless. It's an experience that just occurred. I talked about the one time I spilt my trash, got stuff all over the floor, and I was actually in a hurry, and it was just like, yeah. And when it happened, I laughed. I laughed because it's like, okay, figures. This kind of stuff is going to happen. So as I've said before, let's see if I can get into them. The 12 laws. And the 12 laws are interesting only in that, and these are 12. I find different ones all the time, but the divine oneness, we're kind of all from the one. We're all that law of vibration. Everything has kind of an energy, a frequency, and expands and all that. I mean, there's law of correspondence. There's law of attraction is one of them. Law of inspired action. Law of perpetual transmission. That one's a crazy one. Law of cause and effect. We've got law of compensation, law of relativity. Everything's relative to something else. Law of polarity, law of rhythm, and law of gender. And gender is not that there's male, females. Gender is kind of more from that. Actually, that's more of the yin and yang, but it's more that masculine, feminine energy standpoint. There's kind of, they say it's more of a doing versus receiving, the moon energy versus sun energy. Like there's a lot of aspects that try to tie in that duality, that masculine or male, feminine, whatever. What was it called? Whatever I said it was gender. Thank you. Better word. So again, and then the other part of it is there's this concept of karma. Karma exists planetarily to some degree. So Africa has been a pretty war-torn country. And if you actually go historically prior to our civilization, don't want to get too crazy topic, but it's something fun to talk about because supposedly there's been at least 2 other civilizations on this planet prior to us. I wonder where the Great Pyramids came from. And so I don't think they were just, anyway, they're perfect. You can't even get a piece of paper between those stones. But needless to say, there are some places on this planet that have experienced great war. And these parts of our planet need healing in a big way. And I think it would be orchestrated and kind of has been worked on. There's groups I follow that do mass healings. We've got a lot of issues on the, it's an interesting story when you really get into the karma of the planet. I don't want to get too terribly off track, but again, and you can look at historics, right? There's certain places where people just seem to fight a lot. Middle East has its chunk right there too. There's a lot of stuff that used to happen in those couple areas. And so we've got to clean that up. But that being said, it just helps attract more of that energy in those places. The other thing that really happens that's really hard about this whole process is a thing called groupthink. And a lot of us, and this is a buddy of mine brought this up to me this morning, so I kind of asked what his perspective is. And he's someone that we've kind of collaborated a few times on spiritual matters. And so I have fun having these discussions. And groupthink causes this sort of comfortable place that a lot of us find ourselves. And leaving that comfort place and doing something crazy, something that people would say is radical, something that people would say, what? I can't believe you're listening to those law of attraction nuts. Or what? I can't believe you think that you can thought transmit to other people. Or what? I don't think we have connections to each other. Or what? When you die, you go off forever and you never are anywhere. There's no way you're just like on another dimension. What? No, it can't be that way. You're wrong. To all of them that groupthink, it doesn't make any sense. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being in the groupthink, but what I am saying is it is scary to pop out of the groupthink and think differently and look at it from a different perspective and be like, yeah, there's bad things in the world because people think about bad stuff and because people partake in bad stuff and people apparently want to do bad stuff or people feel like they have to do bad stuff. There's some bad people on this planet and there's some super good people on this planet. we can't all be good because I guess that doesn't work for this whole polarity thing. You have to have, or you just have to have such an ultra evil force, which, God, that'd be worse. I'd rather have a lot of jerks than one amazingly powerful, horrible jerk, right? That could just look at you and you'd be like, age 10 years or something horrible. Like, damn, dude, that was horrible. Like, he's like, I'm mean, I'm evil. Like that would be horrible. That would be not cool. So I don't want that in my life. I'd rather have a myriad of jerks and a rainbow style of them at that. Some of them are like, wow, that's one of the worst people I've ever met, right? Boop, boop. Expand it a little further on the worst side. Oh my God, that's one of the greatest people I've ever met. That's one of the nicest people I've ever met. Oh my God, that's so cool. It expands. Everything expands both ways. So yeah, there's some jacked up stuff that goes on in this world. My real advice around any of this kind of stuff, and I'm not saying it'll go away if we all stop thinking about it. But theoretically, if no one thought about it on this planet ever, right? If no one thought about hitting another person, for example, just hitting, right? No one ever thought about hitting another person at 1 second. I can guarantee you no one's hitting anybody because there's no thought to do it. There's always a thought that drives an action, right? Actions don't just happen like you're just standing in line and you just punch the person in front of you. That right? Because you probably have a disease or something, and that's okay if you do. I'm just saying that's different. That's not fair, right? But for the most part, we have control of those things, and we don't do that. So again, there is a little bit of that us thinking about what we'd like to experience is the way that you're bettering the world, you're bettering yourself, you're bettering everybody. If you're not always fighting about the political stuff, then that has a lot less issues. If you're not always talking about how people are abused, then that's technically kind of not happening more, right? You're taking energy away from it, and you're thinking of something maybe positive, like how people are getting out of that, how people are getting better, how, they talk about steering your thoughts, right? And like maybe it's really hard to just say there's so much of this, and how do I get out of thinking that way? Then it's like, well, you know what? There are people that are trying to make a difference. There are people that are starting to whistleblow me. There are people, it's starting to turn around. The percentages are going to maybe come, right? Like, so start focusing on a world where it's not there and you're not necessarily thinking of a world without it, because that's still thinking about it. You're actually thinking of what would the world be like if it didn't exist? If there were no killing on this planet, what would this world be like? I mean, people wouldn't die as fast. All right, we'd probably have different city structure, different things. People wouldn't fight as much. There would be less weapons. We'd spend money on other things, right? We spend a lot of our national budgets, especially our country, on military. And so we're constantly always trying to put up our dukes against everyone else. I'll punch you first, right? So there's all this stupid stuff going on. If we didn't spend any of that money because no one ever thought of killing each other, because that's like an absurd idea, we wouldn't kill each other, I guarantee you. People might accidentally die. They might walk into manholes, be stupid, just like they do now, but they wouldn't kill each other. I wouldn't stab you because that's absurd to me. Like maybe I already have whatever you have. I can get it or whatever. So again, if nobody thought about it from a law of attraction standpoint, it wouldn't exist. But getting nobody to think about it is a bit of a challenge. So there's jerkholes on this planet, and there's really nice people on this planet. We're all living together on this place. And so some strange stuff does happen. We're all on a soul evolution, even the bad people. Supposedly there's a place where we all come back together into the light, into the love. I think it's 6th dimension. It's only love, right? We're in 3rd dimension, so there's some fun along the way for all of them, and they get different. But anyway, it's stuff I love talking about. So you guys are asking me a deep question. I have to give it from my perspective because this is my understanding of it. I know a lot of people would want to say whatever, but this is how I'm coming at it, and this is how I view it, and certainly why I always recommend think about what you would like to experience. Don't think about what you don't want. It's usually a good way to look at it. Going out with a great song by, it's going to be Duran, I think. Uh-oh, I messed stuff up. I went out of order. Yep, I went out of order. Oh, no. So anyway, we came in with Late in the Evening by Simon and Garfunkel. Going out with Duran. The song is called Reflex. It's right here on Dan Radio Style.